Hello and welcome to Third Gear's Gone. My name's Nathan and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Ahmad.
Hi Nathan, how are you?
Dreadful, mate. Dreadful. Definitely after that Wolves performance. We're recording a mere 12 hours after the humbling at Molineux for Manchester United and Amorim's men. Awful, mate. I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this anymore. I think we're 100% a crisis club. And the big first question that I'm going to ask you, mate, are we too big to go down?
I don't think anyone's too big to go down. If you're not good enough, you go down. And based on what we've been saying for the past few weeks, I mean, it wouldn't be... I don't know, it wouldn't be impossible for us to go down if we keep on going like this. But... I don't know. It might be a good thing to go down. You never know.
You know, the insane part of that, saying it might be a good thing about going down, is that you're not the first person to have actually said that to me. My other Manchester United supporting mates have been like messaging me saying that for a clean sweep, maybe the Championship would be the best thing where you can have a full reset. But I don't know where Amorim's going to get a win from with this team. Like, it's individual errors, it's a lack of leadership, it's a mental frailty. There's so many things to blame with this squad. Conceding off a corner twice in the space of 10 days is just unreal. And even Matheus Cunha came out after the game and said that they were targeting Onana to try and unsettle him, and it worked. And it's ridiculous that any goalkeeper gets beat, or any team gets beat from a corner once. To get beat twice in 10 days is just shows that we're there to be beaten every single game. Set pieces, they know they can get at us completely.
Yeah.
But let's talk about. Obviously, there was flashpoints within the game, but the main one was obviously Fernandes getting sent off immediately after half time. When the most ridiculous thing that you could do, or the worst thing that you could do with your team when you've been booked, is get another immediate card and get sent off, which just makes things 10 times harder. And we conceded immediately after that. Thankfully, it was VAR, but it doesn't change the fact that Bruno just lost his head. That tackle was outrageous, completely unreal.
Felt like he forgot he was on a yellow when he was going for that tackle. Because no way he would have went into that tackle if he knew he had a yellow card. Either way, it was very stupid, and it's the third time he gets sent off this season. And even before he got sent off, he was playing really, really bad. He was really bad throughout the whole game. Throughout the first half, he lost the ball multiple times, misplaced passes, lost every duel he went into, not aggressive enough. I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he's been overplayed. He's been run to the ground ever since he came to the club. He needs a rest. He never gets a rest. No. I don't know. But yeah, as a captain, you can't do silly mistakes and just put your teammates in that position, especially a team that's as fragile as us. You can't just go into challenges. It's very irresponsible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this off air before, but I know it would be outrageous to do this, but it would be a swift and decisive move if Amorim stripped him of the captaincy, because he's not a good captain. He is not a good captain for Manchester United. I think we did talk about it on air. I think we did talk about the fact that in the last episode that his inability to lead and, throwing his arms up in the air when things don't go quite how he planned, he spreads through the rest of the team. He doesn't drag them on. I think we mentioned about the misplaced pass with Garnacho in the last game, and he was, throwing his arms up and looking disappointed. We don't have any natural leaders. That was the other conclusion that we came to as well. But I feel like he is not a captain of Manchester United. And he's had a good run but it just shows how far we've fallen that we accept, well, mediocrity in terms of everything across the pitch, not just the captaincy, but people playing in positions that, they're offering nothing. Hoyland, nothing. Xerxes, nothing. Dalot, nothing. Onana, nothing. They're in the team and they're first team players because there's no serious competition for them. And we are a mid-table or lower half of the table team. We're shocking at the moment. And I don't know where this changes. I don't know where Amorim buys a win from, because we've got Newcastle coming up, which we'll talk about later. Then we've got Arsenal. Is it in the cup, I think?
I think it's Liverpool, then Arsenal.
Liverpool and then Arsenal. 3 games, which conceivably you can see us losing all 3.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know where we're going to get the wins from. And it's desperate times, right? Desperate times.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at this run a few weeks back, we would have thought that the wins would have came against Bournemouth, against Forest, against Wolves. But we've lost all those games. But you're right. I don't see where we get a win from. And I think we should just accept, if anyone hasn't already, we should just accept we're a mid-table team for now. We're going through the worst period in our club's history. And yeah, as I said last week, I said on the podcast that I'm going to go into every game expecting us to lose. I'm just going to watch the game for the sake of it. If we get a win, it's a bonus. And that's what I did last night. I wanted the game. Watching the first half, it was like we're so bad. We're so bad. I don't know. I don't know how you change anything going forward, except for just overhauling the whole squad.
But it's the way that we lose these games. It's not even like, it was hard fought and we lost by the odd goal or the odd mistake. It's the manner in which we're losing these games. Like conceding from a corner is like proper clown school type stuff. Our captain getting sent off minutes after the restart is, again, stupidity. And then it just ripples through the team and we bring on Eriksen, Casemiro and Antony, which is not going to be striking the fear into any team's hearts. Like that was to shore it up rather than to try and go for it. And it's a disaster. All 3 of those players that I just mentioned then would not get into the first team of the current top 10 in the Premier League. Not a one of them. And we're bringing them off the bench hoping that they can perform some sort of miracle. And I really feel for Amorim because, there's only so much he can do with this squad of players. And he talks about the fact that he can't get his point across to them completely because he's not got time to train them. It's match after match after match. But he knew that coming in, so he must have had an idea about how he was going to solve this. But it's just every game, something new or something dreadful happens and there's no way out of it. I don't know where to turn to with this, and Amorim clearly doesn't either.
I think the only thing he can do for now, for this season, the coming months, whatever is left from the season, I think it's time for him to start integrating younger players that he will use going forward in the next seasons. I think that's the only thing. You can give them experience, make them learn the system. And so when you get to next season, for example, or the season after, they would have had a couple of seasons under their belts and they would have benefited from this. Because if you keep on playing players that aren't part of your plans going forward, then what's the point? If they're winning, for example, I would say, okay, he's going to play them just for us to scrape through this season. And he would sell them and then replace them next season. But they're not even winning. They're not even playing well. They're not even fighting. They're not showing that they're losing, but they don't deserve to lose, but they're losing from silly mistakes they're losing deservedly every single time. And that's the thing. A lot of these players, they don't deserve to be at this club. It all goes down to the management that we've had over the past few years. They've made mistake after mistake every single time. And this is what you get when you do mistakes over a period of 10 years. You're going to get to a point where you can actually be looking at relegation for a club as big as Manchester United. You can be looking at relegation because why not? We're not like it's not a God-given right for us just because we're called Manchester United for us not to get relegated or to be in the bottom half of the team. If you look around at the other squads in the Premier League, all of them are better than ours. Most of them are. I'm not going to say all. Most of them are. And we have such an unbalanced squad. It's just crazy. When you put money into people who... When you put money with people who don't know anything about football, like we did with the CEOs we've had, then this is what you got. This is only logical. This is the only logical outcome that we got.
Well, I think you've neatly got us onto the next section of the podcast, where we're going to try and pour over the 1 year of Ineos in charge of Manchester United, which the date has just passed. So let's head straight into that. So as we alluded to at the end of the last section, it's time to have a bit of an assessment of Ineos and their control over Manchester United. It's 1 year on, 365 days. It was one of the most drawn-out, long periods of time bidding processes to get a majority share. In fact, they're minority share, aren't they, at the moment? Between the Qataris, whether they existed or not, Ineos, who managed to get in, and various other people that came and went. But it was Ineos that got it. They've got their feet under the table. And to be honest, it's not particularly great. And before we start pouring over the bad parts about it, have you got any positives, or can you think of any positives that Ineos have brought into the club in the year that they've been in charge?
Yeah. To be fair to them, I can see some positives. I think over the past year, a lot of us were excited whenever we saw anything. Whenever they changed the structure, for example, whenever they appointed a technical director, football director, or anything, everyone got excited. Everyone was like, "This is how a proper football club should be run."
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's easy for us now, looking at how things are going with the team. It's easy for us to say, were they even good decisions? Were they even doing anything? But I'm pretty sure, like, all the decisions they've been making, it was nothing for the short term. It's all for the long term. And so, yeah, personally, I'm gonna give them benefit of the doubt and just give them a chance. But there are many positives, yeah, like changing the structure, removing many people who were there for way too long and doing nothing. But yeah, even the transfer window was okay, in my opinion. The first transfer window, they got in players. Maybe you can say Xerxes was the one. Who was offered. But yeah, if you look at Ugarte, Mazraoui, De Ligt, they're all good Euro for sure. So these are the positives. But I would say there are more negatives than positives.
Absolutely. And I think the Glazers have played an absolute blinder by taking their money from Ineos, sitting back, letting them control the football inside of things, and then watching the car crash from afar while they count their dollars. Because Ineos came in and, like you say, they wanted to build this structure, and they wanted to take control of the football in the sporting side of things again. I would say that their time in charge started out well and well-intentioned. I still think it is well-intentioned, but I still think that Ratcliffe is trying to run Manchester United like a business, which is why he's more focused on bringing in consultants, talking about who behind the scenes should be, which departments should be cut down, penny pinching on Christmas parties, FA Cup travel, things like that. And I seriously think he's trying to run it like all of his other businesses, and he's struggling. Let's be honest. Like, he's making a lot of these decisions himself. He's got those people in place. It was up to him to sack Ashworth after chasing him for so long, which is, unreal. absolutely unreal. Barada is now, I don't know, doing Ratcliffe's job as well as, he's doing Ashworth's job as well as his own. Jason Wilcox is trying to help out with that. There's been no real communication about what the expectation is, whether we're going to replace Dan Ashworth. It wasn't quite the right fit. Whatever it is, they haven't really communicated that with the fans. And it's just these little things in other businesses that they run. They might think, it's okay, we can get away with it. But Manchester United is under the spotlight 24/7, 365 days a year. And every tiny move that happens is like explored in great detail by podcasts like us, by mainstream media, by everyone, by the fans. And even though they had the goodwill at the start and they were well-intentioned, as I've just mentioned, now I'm not so sure. I don't think they're any better than the Glazers right now. And I don't think they've shown anything that proves that they are, apart from bringing in a structure that they dismantled at the first sign of stress, which doesn't fill me with confidence moving forward.
I get it. I see where you're coming from, but to be honest, I cannot compare them to the Glazers. At least they're not taking money out of the club into their own pockets. That's
yet
for sure.
Yet.
I don't think they would. To be honest, I don't think they would.
But whether they did or they didn't, like if you look at that period of time, which again was generated by the Glazers' mismanagement of everything, and that's why they put the club up for sale, right? Or they wanted a cash injection. They knew that they come to the end of where they could get in terms of the sporting side of things, and they needed to refresh it. They needed a fresh injection of cash, of capital, and they probably wanted to just sit back and not deal with the day-to-day running of things anymore. But Ineos have come in, they've had an opportunity to run the club, and in 12 months, they've hired and fired a sporting director that was supposed to be the next best thing that they could get, since sliced bread. And then we've got like Ten Hag being extended with his contract and then fired immediately. And then we've got a new coach being brought in. And if the rumours are to be believed, there is no cash for Amorim to bring any players in January. And that's an impossible situation because none of these players, Amorim wouldn't come into this squad and go, yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player. Yeah, I can work with this squad. There must have been from both sides, from Amorim, from Ineos, okay, we're going to back you financially. You tell us who the players are that you can build this squad around, the future of the club, and we'll try and sprinkle on the stardust with signings. But the rumours about there's no money when we're doing all of these cost cutting exercises, when we've just spent, I think it was a total of about 15 million on Dan Ashworth to hire him, to get him out of Newcastle, to hire him, his salary, and then to fire him. And then we can't buy players. And we're putting ticket prices up to 66 quid. In all the years that the Glazers were in charge, and I'm not defending them, they're leeches, but in all the years that they were in charge, they've never done things like this. They've never impacted the club like this. It could be a result why Ineos are doing this now, the cost cutting, is a result of the poor management. But Ineos have come in like a bull in a china shop and they're wrecking everything without any sort of positives. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
and I've never really trusted Ratcliffe anyway.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't trust him either. But end of the day, he's trying. He's not gonna buy the club and then not want it to succeed, not do everything he can to make it succeed. But like on the decisions that I see that they've been making as management, hiring Ashworth, sacking Ashworth, extending Ten Hag, sacking Ten Hag. I get where it's not ideal, but again, I like the fact that they're not afraid to take these ruthless decisions, even though they might look stupid, which a lot of people think they are right now. But sometimes you need that. You need to be ruthless, even if it means you're losing money on them.
I get that. I understand that. But then playing devil's advocate with this and trying to flip that narrative around. Like, they didn't do their due diligence then. If they thought they was getting something else out of Ashworth that wasn't quite what they wanted, then that's on them. They said Jim Ratcliffe on record, best in class in every position at the club, behind the scenes, on the pitch, best in class. So they didn't do their due diligence to extend, whether it was Ashworth's fault or not, to extend Ten Hag, again, is like, what are you doing? Like, it's fine to then say, right, okay, we need a change. Well, the damage is done, and you've just overspent on a manager that you didn't even want. And I think this feeling of the disorientation is spreading through the club, which is why Rashford feels like he can go out there and do interviews whenever he wants, because there's no leadership. It doesn't feel like there's any real, like, the person is at the club. It should be Barada, I guess, or Ratcliffe. He loves an interview. But someone at the club that is instilling this, like, high performance, efficient work ethic across the board, from the people in the canteen to the people on the pitch. And it just feels like United just feels lawless at the moment, and no one seems to be able to fix it. We've had so many managers that have tried. We've had so many coaches behind the scenes that have tried. We've had Rangnick, who said, was it 5 years ago, that Rangnick said it needs open heart surgery?
Yeah, it's been like 3 years.
Like, we need a load of players in and a load of players out. That still stands.
That
still stands.
Sure. But that's the thing. Like, that's why I think it's not on the manager. Like, that's what I've always said. Like, I can't blame a manager, because, like you said, we've brought in so many managers that succeeded elsewhere, but they come to the club and they fail, and that's not coincidence. That falls on the management. And like you say, it's because we don't have this mentality, this work ethic that's been instilled from top to bottom. That's what you need at every functional club that wins stuff. But we don't have that. And I think because we've had those 10 years where all the standards dropped and everything was so low, it's going to need a lot of time for it to change. And I think that's what Ineos are trying to do. I know it's not ideal, the fact that they've been sacking people who work at the club, who've been at the club for, 20, 30 years. But maybe that's part of the problem. That's part of the issue that we have. Maybe people, we don't need all those positions to be full. We don't, like, you can cost cut. It's at the end of the day, it is a business. Football is a business, and maybe them treating it as a business isn't the worst thing, because.
But then treating it as a business and sacking those people and gaining profits, what are the profits for if they're not going back into the performances on the pitch?
Yeah, but they're not just gonna sack people who work at the club. They're also gonna work on the players. They're trying to push players who are on high wages and not good enough. They're trying to push them out the door as well. But it's not as simple. You can't just sack a player. If they would, they would have.
Well, this is going to be the interesting thing, which we can obviously get onto. Ineos can rectify a lot of this with what they do in January. Like, even though they're saying that the rumours are that there's no money, I think Murray Whitwell from The Athletic has said that. I think the Guardian have mentioned it as well, that there isn't any money this January. But you can't seriously sit there looking at this squad and think it's okay. It'll be fine. We'll get wins out of this. Because otherwise, if that is out there sitting there, and if that is out there assessing the whole situation, Amorim's job is on the line. Yeah. Like any manager, but Amorim's job is on the line. If they're looking at this and going, you've got adequate squad depth to do better than you're currently doing, but the players aren't performing,
but
what's going to happen?
As a club, we've always, especially if you try to remember, like, the past 6-7 years, we've always went into each summer with the reports coming out, United have 100 million to spend only this summer. Uh-huh. United have, I don't know, like 50 million, 80 million. They need to sell players. And then we end up, I don't know, spending 150, 200 million without selling anyone. It's always like that. And I think one of the first things that Ineos were trying to do when they came in was to change the narrative that United overspent. So because we don't want other clubs pulling our pants down every time. And this is part of the process. You have to make everyone think that you're broke, so that when you go into negotiations, no one forces you to overpay. So I don't fully believe the fact that we don't have money to spend. I also think we're gonna spend in January, at least get one player in. But we need to start selling. And on Amorim, I don't think he would have came in unless he had guarantees that we will be able to overhaul the squad, because it doesn't need a genius to look at the squad and think it needs a lot of work. And from day one, Amorim came in and he was like, this is going to take time. For now, the only thing you're going to see is the style of play. I don't know. I can't promise you that we're going to win. But for now, the thing you're going to see is the style of play, even if the players aren't good enough. And for us to become successful again, it's going to take time. It's going to take transfer windows, which is needed. And it becomes more obvious with every passing game.
I think you mentioned it on WhatsApp last night when we was messaging during the game, but it needs a Chelsea style 10 in, 10 out type of reset. And you're absolutely right. You are right. They got beat at home to Fulham. It's not. The league is topsy-turvy this year. It's just, we just can't buy a win at the moment. And if we did, we'd probably be up in 10th. If we'd have won yesterday, I think we'd have been like 10th or 11th, which is not ideal for a club of Manchester United size, but at least it drags you up the table slightly. But it is going to need something of that magnitude where, I know we talked a lot about Ineos and about the way that they've dealt with things, but the one thing that they need to be fully aware of, and the one thing that will bring fans back on side, like myself, that are dubious about the way that they're running the club, is by booting these average players out, looking at them and getting rid of them. I think when we got rid of the younger guys, like your McTominays, your what was the kid called, went to Benfica, Fernandez. Like when you're getting rid of players like that, great. It's all like pure profit if they've come through the academy. But now the big test, like you just said before, is getting rid of your Ericssons, your Casemiros, your Rashfords now. I mean, that seems like it's the most natural thing in the world to get rid of him. Darrow. We've fallen so far that we've accepted that, like, a lower standard of like, Onana's a good goalkeeper. I don't think he is. I don't think he's a great goalkeeper. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I don't think he's a great goalkeeper. And I think he wouldn't get into any of the Sir Alex Ferguson's teams because he's not a good showstopper. He's super poor. But his backup is even worse. So when he goes to when you start to think of Onana in isolation, you go, well, he's much better than Bayindir. But Bayindir won't get into any of the teams in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? And
it's the same as strikers.
Højlund and Xerxes. Højlund's better than Xerxes, but I mean, better at what?
Nothing.
Better at what? Exactly.
No, even Højlund last night. This is the thing. Like, as a team, you can defend. Even if you have 11 average players, if you set up properly, you can keep a clean sheet. We've seen this many times. But yeah, like if you wanna actually win games, you need individual brilliance up front. You need players who can take on the responsibility. But yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We need to. This was talked about at the beginning of the season, and I think it was something that maybe Ashworth and Wilcox had noticed about bringing up the physical level of all the players. But alongside that, you need the physical attributes brought up. But we need some leaders in this team, and that when the chips are down, you're looking around for someone to try and generate that enthusiasm, inspire the rest of the players around them. Ahmad does it every now and again. Like, he's only as good as the players around him, and you can't keep relying on him. We need more leaders like that can inspire the rest of the team, because they just seem to be treading water. And the one thing I will say, again, which just typifies the slide which Manchester United have been on, was when you look at that goal from last night, the second one that they scored on the counter-attack. Garnacho bullied off the ball like he was a child, and then just sits on the ground, sorting his shoes out, sorting his boots out. Like, absolutely infuriating. But that's what I feel like. That just typifies the mentality of those players in that team. They're waiting for something to happen, or they'll blow the whistle and, I'll get a free kick. None. You got bullied, and you lost possession, and you didn't get back. You didn't bust the guts to get back. And then it's a 2-on-1 situation. Easy goal. Easy.
I mean, even, okay, if we want to say that they're not good enough to create chances, to score, to come up with something out of nothing, okay, not many teams have that. But at least run. And this is the issue that we have, at least run. And running, I think running is 90% mentality and 10% actual physical attributes. Like, you have to want to run. You have to want to chase the ball. This is why, okay, like, we keep on going back, but this is why we were so successful under Ferguson. You had 3-4 players who were actually world class. Around them, you had players who were decent, but they ran. You had your Fletchers, you had your O'Shea's, you had your
Gary Neville.
Yeah, Gary
He was
Neville.
never the best player, but he would run every single game.
Even Beckham, even Giggs, like, these are world class players that are unbelievable, but they ran. Keane, even Carrick, Scholes used to run. Like, all of them ran. This is the thing. This is what the main thing that all of them had. With this team, no one wants to run. No one wants. Yeah, go.
Sorry, go on.
No, go. Tell me. I'm done.
I was going to say, just bringing it back round full circle to exactly what you're talking about there. Like, the sporting side of things is that's what Ineos was supposed to be taking care of, right? But why is that not happening? Why are we seeing, like, the worst squad possible? Because you can't just say, well, they're just not all good enough. This is on them. They need to make it good enough.
Yeah,
not just Amorim. They need to make it good enough. But the getting Brailsford in, getting Ashworth in, getting Wilcox in, like, what are they doing to this squad? What's the message that they're trying to get across to them, and why is it being lost? Why did these players so quickly down tools as a collective? That's a big concern.
There's a saying, like, leopards never change their spots. And those players have been there, I don't know under how many managers, and we go through this same conversation every single time. I'm not going to blame the managers. I'm not going to blame the board. I'm going to blame the board just for the fact that they recruited these players. But these players aren't good enough. These players are not good enough. We've been saying this for way too long. These players are not good enough. And I cannot blame Ineos, because why haven't they done anything? Because if I look at the transfer window, the first transfer window that they had, which was summer, they got in players who actually improved that. You got in Ugarte, who was, again, last night, he was amazing. He was, every time I watch United, he's the best player, or one of the best. He's always consistent. He's always doing the right things. He doesn't lose his head. He gets the yellow card. He got a yellow card stupidly last night for delaying play. But in general, he's one of the better ones. Mazraoui, very good technical player. You can depend on him. Delic, ever since he's been ill, he's not been playing. You can see that team is missing something. Euro. Yeah, I mean, like, you can see what they're going for. But it's going to take a lot of time. And if it was in their hands, and if the club was in a better state and in a better condition financially, they would have probably recruited 10 players last summer. But they don't have, like, they can't. They're not allowed to because of the PSR rules and the FFP. So I would judge, at least, like, I would give them 3 or 4 transfer windows before looking back and saying, what have they been doing? Because if you look at the other clubs, Chelsea, for example, you mentioned, and I was telling you last night, yeah, everyone looked at them. I think they finished, I don't know, 14th or 13th 2 seasons ago. And everyone was looking at them like, oh, what are you doing? I mean, like, you're selling Mount, you're selling Gallagher, you're selling, I don't know who, they Chilwell is still there. But, like, they've been selling many players, but they knew what they were doing. They They got in Palmer, they got in Jackson, they got in Caicedo, they got in, I don't know, Fernandez, Lavia. They've been getting players who can actually build a team that would actually challenge, not this season, but probably next season or the season after. Like, you can see where they're going. With this club, with United, you're going to need the same. We're going to need the same.
January is going to be a very, very big month for Ineos, I feel, and for Manchester United. And if there's one rumour that's floating around at the moment, which would make me slightly more happier about Ineos being in charge, it's the Osimhen rumour about him being interested in going to United. United potentially paying his transfer fee, but he's a striker. Our strikers are starved of service at the moment, so just him on his own won't fix things. But I think if we go back to what you were saying before about them being ruthless, and that's one of the positives about Ineos, then Højlund, Xerxes, Garnacho, Rashford, Bruno, all these players that you would consider to be high ticket, go and move them on and replace them.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to do it.
Because, if you look at their attacking options, most of them, the only one who I can look at and maybe say there's a bit of promise, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to hype him up too much because I'm still not that convinced, because I've been through that way too many times before. But Ahmad is the only one who can actually say, okay, you can keep him if you want to challenge for something later. But even Ahmad, even though he's been amazing this season, we're still comparing him to Garnacho. We're still comparing him to Rashford. That's why we think he's good. But you need consistency. You need end product. You need I don't know. We've been starved of that for way too long that we think a goal every 3-4 games is good enough. This is the case right now. But if you want to improve the team, if you want to, like I said, if you want to speed up the process, cut it from 5 years to 2 or 3 years, then you need to start moving on players and replacing them as soon as you can, and getting players who can guarantee you goals immediately.
Right. I'm just going to ask you straight out. Are we going to beat Newcastle?
No.
Good. That's the end of that section. Brilliant. Let's move it on. No, it does feel desperate right now. But I said this on the last podcast. Amorim's got to get a win from somewhere. He has to. And I don't know how you do it with those players that are clearly down tools. They're so quick to just go, forget it. There's another loss. Anyway, how much did I get in my bank account this week? 100,000. There we go. Nice.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And I don't think it doesn't matter who we say he should play. There aren't enough players in that squad that will put out a decent performance. There's no team unity. And you keep changing it up, and you can bring in youth, which I agree with, like you said earlier. You can bring in youth and they can do a job for us. But we don't have that. We don't have any unity. Teams above us, regardless of whether they win, lose or draw, there's something about them. Whereas our team is a collective of mercenaries that don't seem to want to play for each other. They pass the ball to the other person and then just go, okay, do some magic now. And it's, that's just where we are with it now.
Yeah.
But how do you see this one going with Newcastle? Do you see anything other than a defeat?
Yeah, I have no reason to. I have no reason to think that we're going to do anything this game. Even Ugarte is suspended. I was saying he's one of our better players. He's suspended.
Bruno.
I don't know. It's a good thing and a bad thing because when Bruno plays, you feel he's tilting up the place like last night. But when he doesn't play, the team is also even more dysfunctional. So I don't know. It's a weird conundrum with him. But like you said, we don't have enough players. We don't have players who can do something. And if you look at Newcastle, even for the past few weeks, they've been doing really, really well. Isak again scored last night. Gordon scored last night. Their midfield is definitely gonna outpower ours. they're gonna outplay ours. Their midfield is really good. Their defense is way too physical for our strikers and our attackers. And yeah, so like I don't see a reason why they wouldn't come to this game thinking they can like even not only win but like win 2, 3, 4. I mean that's pessimistic from my side, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, no, I think you're right, and it's depressing to think about it, mate. It's just really depressing. The two players you just mentioned there, Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak, like two players that we should be, if we have any aspirations to challenge this squad up, they're two players that would fit in at Manchester United. We had a chance to get Isak when he was at Sociedad, right? And I can't remember who we bought in his place. Was it Cavani? There was someone that we bought at the time.
I think like we went for Mount and I don't know, Mount and who did we get that summer? Mount, Onana. I don't know.
But again, these are the mistakes that we just cannot fall into anymore. And buying Højlund was a gamble. Buying Xerxes was an even bigger gamble. And these players are just, Isak every day, you'd have him in over these two strikers. And I think he's got more goals than them all season, which is, again, I know that's not difficult, but it just shows the contrast between having a functioning team and one that is in disarray, like ours.
But I think I mentioned this to you. I mentioned this to you yesterday when we were talking. Like, buying Isak from Sociedad would have been the same gamble of us buying Højlund from Atalanta, for example. I know Isak had more credit in his bank. He played the Euros. He was amazing the Euros. He played a few seasons. Højlund only had one. But that's why, like, I wouldn't be surprised like if we got an Isak and then he didn't succeed. It's just because United is a different animal. They're a different beast. The pressure that it puts on a player is something else.
Well, this is something that it's not just on the players; it's on the coaches. I sent you that picture of what's he called, Amorim. After the game midweek, and he was like, his eyes looked red. He just looked gone. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, essentially.
Yeah, even last night.
Which is what... Pardon?
Even last night, he looked the same.
Even last night, yeah. Because it's a bigger beast than what anyone can imagine before they come to the club. Yeah. And you're right. If we'd have bought Isak, probably would have come in and done the exact same thing. If Ineos are doing something behind the scenes that is fixing these things, then it needs to start showing through, because the current players that we have are going into a Newcastle game like going through the motions, just like they did last night and every game all season. The only time they raised themselves was for like 15 minutes against Man City in a couple of weeks ago.
Which we've seen right now. It's not that difficult, to be honest, against City. Everyone's getting something out of City.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at Everton, we smashed them up 4-0, but then that just marks us out as flat track bullies, able to beat teams that are going through a terrible, terrible patch. But one thing I will say, and I saw some people talking about this on Blue Sky as well, is that Amorim, you can't blame him, right? You can't. It's too early in the day, and I've seen people saying Amorim out, which is ridiculous. Like, I don't know if they're joking, but it's a stupid thing and typical of modern day football. But the new manager from Wolves came in like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. He's already got like 2 wins with this team. Like what's different? What's different?
What's different is
Amorim has to do something.
No, what's different is that Wolves already had their squad built for the system that he plays. So when Wolves decided to replace Gary O'Neill, they got in a manager that plays the same system because they have the players for it. It's the exact thing that Brighton does, for example. So you don't notice that big of a difference. They just get in the manager to shore things up at the back, for example, give them a new spirit. But they have the players for it. Even watching, I've watched a lot of Wolves this season, from the beginning of the season. And I don't know how they're not in the top half of the table, because every time I watched them, they played like one of the best teams to play to watch, to be honest. But they kept on losing silly points. I don't know, like some games where they deserved to win, but they lost for some reason. But they have the players to. For example, you're saying like Isaac and Gordon are two players that would fit into our team. Every single game I watch United play, and I look at the opposition, they have players that would fit into our team and improve us 10 times. Last night it was Konya again. I'm sure you watched, you saw like what he was doing. He was literally everywhere. He scored, he assisted, he defended, he linked up play, he created chances. He's unbelievable, this guy. He carries the ball, he creates something out of nothing. These are the kinds of players that you need in your team. To a degree that even Wolves, who are 18th in the league, a player like him can pull them up, even though they don't have enough players to do that. So that's what you need.
But let me ask you a question, right? Is football management as difficult as we're led to believe it to be? We've all played football before. We've all played under managers before. We've all been given instructions of, this is your man. You're going to run up and down. Make sure you get the crosses in there. Is it any more difficult than that to teach these players, just like giving them instructions of, right, this is how we're playing. You're going to play in this position. It doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 10 years or 10 minutes. As a professional footballer, surely those ideas must come across and you go, right, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like how thick can these players be in this current Manchester United squad that they don't understand that they're playing a slightly different system? Like it's always talked about like, oh, it's technical, it's this, it's that. It's running, it's heart, and it's putting the ball in the net. That's the three basic things that you can do. And if this team doesn't understand it, this squad of players can't understand that, that says something serious about this group of players, that they just can't do it.
But yeah, like to answer your question, I think football management is I don't know, it's a very gray area. It's a very gray area. Like it's there are many things that are, what is it called, intangibles, that they have to have, you know. You can train them as much as you can, coach them as much as you want. You can coach them to, all right, you can be in this position. This is something that I don't know, like thousands of coaches out there that are very good at that. But the thing that distinguishes a coach that would make a team great and a coach that would make team average is the intangibles. It's the spirit. It's the way. It's the motivation. That's why Sir Alex was the best.
Yeah,
he wasn't the best tactically. He wasn't. Like there were many managers out there who tactically were outsmarting him, who knew more about tactics than him. Even he would admit that. He used to bring in the coaches, for example, Carlos Queiroz, René Molestein, McPhillan, Steve McLaren. All of those coaches came in for the sole reason of tactics. But he was the one responsible of the team spirit, of the motivation, making sure that standards do not drop. And that's why he was so successful for all those years. So that's what you need. And that's not easy. That's the difficult part. That's a very difficult part. As a coach, I mentioned this before. As a coach, you can coach your team to set up, not to concede, and you can coach the players to get into positions to create chances. But from there on out, it's on the players. It depends on the individual brilliance. And we don't have that. That's why you need. It's a collective effort, especially nowadays in modern football. It's a collective effort between the board, technical director, football director, or whatever, and the head coach, to make sure recruiting is right, everyone fits the system, and that the head coach can motivate the team. And this is what Amorim is actually. I think this is the 90% of the reason why we got him, because his way of communicating, his personality, this is what makes him stand out. Because coaching-wise, we saw, for example, Van Gaal. Van Gaal is probably top 5 coaches in history. He coached small teams to go on like crazy Champions League runs, winning the league I don't know who he wanted with some Dutch team, or maybe Alkmaar or something. I can't remember. But like he was a very good coach, and that's why we brought him in. But we saw he wasn't good enough because players felt it's too rigid. I don't want to be coached like that. I don't feel free. I don't feel like I can show what I have, especially at a club like Manchester United. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's very big. It's very big. Like you need, like you need a lot for a lot of things to come together, and then you can actually look at a functional 11 playing on the field.
You are right. So score prediction:
3-0 Newcastle. Yeah.
I'm going to try and be optimistic and say 2-2. I'm going to say 2-2.
It's not difference, to be honest. 1 point, 0 points.
I know exactly. I know, but I've got to try and remain optimistic.
The only thing I want is first to get a result so that we go into the Liverpool game with some confidence, just so we can draw at least against Liverpool, so that we can, I don't know, just stop their try to challenge a bit, because it seems they're running away with it. No one else wants it. That's the only thing I can hope for, to be honest.
FPL pick?
I don't know. No one. Literally no one. I can't.
Ahmad again, right? Ahmad again.
Even Ahmad.
No?
Ever since I got him in, he did nothing. So, no.
Do we think Rashford will be back in the squad for this game?
No. I think he's done. I think he played his last game against Victoria Pilsen. He came off. I think that was the last time we saw him in a United shirt.
Okay, then there we go. Slightly depressing podcast again, but blame Manchester United, which is the core subject of this podcast, obviously. But thanks for listening again, and thanks for tuning into YouTube and YouTube Shorts. I've noticed that the listener and viewership is going up steadily, which makes me and Ahmad very happy indeed. So we will speak to you again after the Newcastle game, and hopefully with a point or 3 in the bag.